Dark Side of the Ring tonight. We had Dr. David Schultz, the slap heard around the world. This documentary tonight had so much that we could talk about. And this, excuse me, this documentary tonight was, in my honest opinion, fantastic. And one of the best documentaries so far in season 2. Obviously, the big discussion here tonight is going to be the slap around the world and the topic of pro wrestling being fake. So that's what Dark Side of the Ring was about tonight. I am Joseph Conlon. Thank you guys for watching the Dark Side of the Ring review tonight with the slap heard around the world, Dr. David Schultz. We're going to talk about everything that happened tonight. So without further ado, man, here we go. The first note I took was that David Schultz played such a great heel when he was in the WWF at this time. He was really good at what he does in the ring, one of the best in-ring wrestlers in the WWF, and he was their top heel in WWF in the 1980s, I guess you could say. Herb Welsh was his trainer. So he was trained by Herb Welsh, and his method of training was to beat the shit out of his students. Like how they would train, he beat the shit out of a student. He would put in a headlock on one of his students, and he would never let go of them until, they were passed out. So, but he was basically telling them his method of training was to put a lock in until he passes out, until the student passes out or something like that. Secret back then in the 1980s was to protect the business. That was the whole part of kayfabe and wrestling not being fake. They need to protect the business. David Schultz was one of those guys who was in it to protect the business. So that's that. Schultz wrestled Hulk Hogan a bunch of times in Florida. Hogan told Vince that he wanted to work with Schultz in WWF. And Schultz was one of Hulk Hogan's biggest rivals in the WWF. I'm guessing they had a really good rivalry. Maybe, just maybe, I'll have to go back and watch a few of their matches. Not sure. But now, I put this in my notes because I found this absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious that I got a good laugh out of it. David Schultz was cutting a promo in his house, and he was shooting a rifle in his house during the promo, and Vince McMahon was there with him, and he popped up. He's like, "Ah, damn it, you stupid idiot," because he shot a rifle in his house. And then once Vince said, "Ah, you stupid idiot," it cracked me up. That was very funny, I thought. And one of my favorite parts of the documentary. Vince wanted David Schultz to be a top heel in WWF. All people wanted to know in 1980s, was pro wrestling fake? ABC News was reporting the hashtag wrestling fake was breaking when this moron that we'll talk about, John Stossel, broke it. And then Eddie Mansfield and John Stossel were fake wrestling and acting like wrestling was fake and all that stuff. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give my opinion on wrestling being fake or not. So once I get all of this done, I'll give my thoughts on that. Back then, people didn't want fake blood, so wrestlers were legitimately bleeding, and they were not bleeding. Mansfield showed Stossel how to bleed across the head. So he had a blade, and he just wiped it across his head, and fake blood was coming down his head, or was shown on his head. Eddie Mansfield, wanted a health care for wrestling. And then, since Stoss, Jesus Christ, Stossel was saying everything about pro wrestling was fake, it's not real, all that stuff. Vince McMahon wanted David Schultz to be interviewed by him, and he wanted him to destroy Stossel in his gimmick. So Dr. Schultz slapped the reporter, which is John Stossel. When he said pro wrestling is fake, he said, is this business, or something about the business, and his character, and all that, why he called Dr. D, and all that stuff, and he said, is wrestling fake? So he slapped him across the face. After Schultz's match that night, Vince told him to immediately go to the hotel. Stossel is hurt, and Stossel pressed charges against Vince McMahon and David Schultz. The wrestling community said, Jim Cornette said, was outraged at John Stossel that he broke this thing and, didn't hide the secret that pro wrestling was fake. McMahon sent Schultz to wrestle in Japan to see if things were changed, and things did not change for David Schultz in Japan. Vince was sued by John Stossel, and Vince wanted Schultz to sign a paper saying that he did it and not Vince. So Schultz refused to sign the paper because it was in the script for him to be a character, but not to legitimately slap him. And then one of the parts during the show, I think I didn't put it in here, but another part of the show is for a show in Japan was that Vince wanted Schultz to slap the reporter unless he was going to put him in the script. So he put it in the script and he slapped another reporter, and then there were headlines that Schultz slapped another reporter again, like he did at Madison Square Garden. Stossel was lying about his ears hurting the entire time. Now I'm going to talk about John Stossel, just because it's in my mind. John Stossel is a faggot, folks. John Stossel, in my opinion, is a faggot. You want to know why? Because he lied to us, He lied to us about his ears hurting when the slap looked like it didn't even hurt, because Schultz did a quick slap, like that. He didn't wind up and hit him. It was just a quick slap to the face. So that's one. And then running around reporting on news and healthcare that wrestling was fake, and he tried to start trouble on it. So I got a few once I read everything, I'll tell you what I got out of this. Schultz says Mr. T in WrestleMania 1 against Hulk Hogan was an absolute joke. I agree with Schultz. Schultz was fired after he threatened to beat up Mr. T during the match. He slapped Hulk Hogan. He actually slapped Hulk Hogan during the match at WrestleMania, and he was brought to the back by cops, and cops put guns to Schultz's head. Vince was pissed after he slapped... Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't Hulk Hogan who he slapped. It was Mr. T. Hogan, on a news show, put a hold on a reporter, and the reporter passed out as he wanted to see what wrestlers do to each other. during matches. Schultz worked independent for 2 years, and people knew him on the streets as Dr. D. Vince went to health. He went to athletic department in Baltimore and said it's entertainment because of taxes. Those are all the notes I took on this documentary tonight. A few things that I got out of this. Number one, John Stossel is a faggot for being a snitch, spreading around, going around, telling news reporters about wrestling and this whole thing, wrestling's fake, whatever. Number two, David Schultz got fired after WrestleMania. Hulk Hogan was his friend. He could have stood up for David Schultz and told Vince McMahon not to fire. So number two, Hulk Hogan was a shitty friend. And number three, now this is my number three. My opinion on wrestling being fake. Now, I could be made fun of this. People can make fun of me all they want. I really don't care. Like Schultz said at the end of the documentary, he don't care what people say about him, saying that wrestling is real nowadays. I don't care what people say in my opinion. Wrestling is not fake. Wrestling is not fake because if you see the injuries that guys and girls go through now. You tell Daniel Bryan, who was out of the ring for 3 years because of neck surgery. I dare you to tell him wrestling is fake. I dare you to tell Edge, who had neck surgery, and was out of wrestling for 9 years. 9 years at home, sitting on the couch. If wrestling was fake, Edge would have never got injured and he would have been okay. I dare you to tell a Kurt Angle that wrestling is fake. I dare you to tell Brock Lesnar that wrestling is fake after he hurt his neck off a moonsault at WrestleMania. I dare you to tell Brock Lesnar that wrestling is fake. Or I dare you to step in the ring with Brock Lesnar, and then when you're done, you come back to me and say, oh, you were right. Wrestling is not fake. So, the final thing that I got out of this, is wrestling fake? Absolutely not. 100% not, and I will stand by that for as long as possible. I don't care what anyone says. I will stand by that as long as possible. Pro wrestling is not fake. Scripted? Yes. Predetermined before the show starts? Yes. Fake? Absolutely not. And that's my thoughts on tonight's Dark Side of the Ring episode with David Schultz. Like I said in the beginning, I thought this was a fantastic documentary tonight. Probably the third best documentary, or the second or third best documentary in season 2 so far. I want to thank you guys for watching this video. If you haven't already, subscribe right here on the Big Five Field channel. We got 3 new subscribers this week. We had 70 yesterday. Today we have 73. For you guys who subscribed, welcome to the channel. Comment down below what you thought of tonight's Dark Side of the Ring, Dr. David Schultz documentary. I would love to know your opinions down below. Like this video with a super kick. Follow me on Twitter at Conlon_Joseph. You can follow me on Instagram at Conlon_Joseph. And you can follow Eddie on Twitter at Eddie Mullins 515. Guys, I'm going to go get some rest, upload this video, go to bed. Long day tomorrow. Wednesday tomorrow. AEW Dynamite, NXT. We got the semifinals of the TNT Championship Tournament happening tomorrow night. Darby Allin and Cody, Lance Archer and Dustin Rhodes. And on NXT, we got Damian Priest versus Keith Lee for the NXT North America Championship. It should be, once again, another fun Wednesday of pro wrestling. Have a good night and stay safe.